дико я shiny, пару лямов money on my neck of money rain.
It's my name, это мой money rain. No pain, no gain, иди нахуй Monday. Zoro is my name, ра-та-та, bang-bang. Заряжаю, бляха, моя baby mother. It's my name, это мой money.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Luffy Finds BEN10 in One Piece. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Spartan of Chaos on fanfictionnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The day started out like any other for BEN10, his cousin Gwen, and their pal Kevin Ledden. The three of them were at Mr. Smoothie so Ben could chug his way past some of the weirdest combinations of smoothies in existence. Seriously, Kevin said, sitting up against his car while Ben had gone inside to order. I don't know how he can drink all those smoothies and not get sick once. Weird tastes must run in the family, Gwen said, remembering her grandpa's strange taste in food. I'm back, Ben said, walking back outside and towards Gwen and Kevin with a tray full of smoothies. That was fast, Kevin noted. Those guys must have all your favorite flavors memorized. Did you even pay for them? Gwen asked. Nope, Ben said with a grin. The guy in there said they were on the house. Awesome. Kevin snorted. Figures, he said. Ever since you became a celebrity, Mr. Smoothie is suddenly considered a sacred place. Ben sighed. Once again, his sudden rise in fame had been brought up. Sure, the attention had been okay at first, but there's a flip side to every coin. As with most celebrities, Ben had to put up with harassing paparazzi, the slanderous will harangue, not to mention all the villains who knew where he lived now. And all that was only the tip of the iceberg. There had also been the whole incident with Agregor and the Map of Infinity. Then after that, Ben and Gwen had to put up with a mutated Kevin. Again and finally, there was that incident with Diagon, Sir George, and the war between the Forever Knights and the Esotrica which ended with Azimuth having gifted Ben with a brand new Omnitrix. It was much sleeker than the Ultimatrix, as it was now only slightly larger than an average wristwatch as opposed to being a large gauntlet. It was a square, white watch with green highlights, with said highlights converging on the black faceplate to form the intergalactic peace symbol, which resembled an hourglass. As opposed as Azimuth was to the evolutionary feature that Albedo, his former assistant, had added to the Ultimatrix, he recognized that it had aided Ben numerous times during his hero tenure, and reluctantly decided to include it in his latest model. You know what? Ben asked Gwen and Kevin as he drank one of his smoothies. I just wish I could get away from it all. All what? Gwen asked as Ben finished his first smoothie and went on to the next one. All this attention, Ben explained before taking a drink out of his smoothie and then continuing. To be honest, I'm tired of being a celebrity. Better than being on the most wanted list, Kevin pointed out before adding with a smirk. I should know. Anyway, Ben continued as he started on his third smoothie. I just wish that there was someplace I could go for a while, where I won't have to put up with any paparazzi or will harangue or... I believe I can help you with that. The three teens turned to see a man wearing a suit, white lab coat, and goggles around his neck smiling at them while holding a pocket watch in his hands. Professor Paradox? Ben asked the man. What are you doing here? Ain't it obvious by now, Tennyson? Kevin asked with a sigh. So, what universal crisis are we dealing with this time? Now, Kevin, Paradox said. What makes you think the universe is in danger every time I come to visit? Oh, I don't know, Kevin replied sarcastically. Maybe because it always is? Usually, Paradox admitted, but not this time. Ben raised an eyebrow. The universe isn't in danger? Not exactly, Paradox replied. Ben frowned. Okay, that didn't answer my question. If the universe isn't in danger, Gwen said, then what is? Paradox smiled at Gwen before looking at the others. Tell me, have any of you three ever heard of parallel universes? That's just a theory, Kevin said. Never been proven. He noticed that Gwen and Ben were both staring at him. What? Alien tech dealers were always hoping to find parallel universes so they could have more customers. Never worked because they could never find them. Well, that's not entirely true, Paradox said. Just because something isn't found doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Let me guess, Ben said. You've found these parallel universes, haven't you? Quite an amazing find, I must say, Paradox said rather proudly. There are many different parallel universes out there. Some contain similar physics to ours, while some contain discoveries that our own universe could only dream of finding. And you're saying that one of these parallel universes needs our help? Ben asked. What'd I tell ya? Kevin asked him. Whenever Paradox shows up, we wind us having to do something. Well, it's not an entire parallel universe that needs your help, Paradox said. Rather, it is one of their Earths that need your help. A parallel Earth? Ben asked, interested despite himself. Yes, Paradox said with a nod. But I think it would be best if I were to explain this world to you while you go and pack. Pack? Kevin asked in concern. How long are we supposed to be staying there? I'm afraid you will be staying there for quite some time, Paradox answered. What about our parents? Gwen asked. Who's going to keep Bellwood safe? Ben added. I have already explained the situation to your grandfather, Paradox said. He will tell everything to your parents. As for protecting Bellwood, that job will now be for the plumber's helpers. What about school? Ben pointed out. While I am fond of good education, Paradox said, I'm afraid you won't be attending school for quite some time either. Kevin shrugged. Works for me. But what about us packing and getting ready? You can get started right now, Paradox said brightly. The others looked at him in confusion until they realized that they were standing in front of Ben's house. Kevin's car included. Ben's parents were out of town, which explained why only Ben's car was in the driveway and his parents' car wasn't. Kevin made a face at Paradox. I hate when you do that, he said. Well then, Paradox said as he walked to the door of Ben's house. Shall we? Exchanging confused looks with each other, the three walked up the house. Ben unlocked the door and let everyone inside as Paradox continued talking. Unlike our own Earth and its technology, Paradox began, the parallel Earth that requires your assistance has unique technology in a world of pirates. Pirates? Ben asked, his interest caught. Pirates? Kevin asked, not really interested. What kind of weird parallel Earth is that? Oh, don't believe it's the same as the pirates from your own world, Paradox told him. This world of pirates is unlike anything you have ever seen. He chuckled. And I know that you have seen a lot. Ben went up to his room and began pulling various clothes out of his dresser and closet. I suppose it would be best if I told you a little bit more about an important moment in this world's history, Paradox said. You see, there was once a pirate who went by the name of Goldie Roger, incorrectly called Gold Roger by most. He was known as the king of the pirates and said to possess power and a vast amount of wealth beyond anyone else's dreams. This wealth has been called a treasure known as OnePiece. Kevin looked at Paradox with interest now. Keep going, he coaxed. One day, Roger was finally going to be executed by the Marines of that world, Paradox continued. Before he was executed, however, he announced to the world that his fortune was for the taking, but whoever wanted it would have to find it. Ever since his death, pirate crews have been forming left and right to find the legendary One Piece, because whoever possesses it will become the king of the pirates. Kevin grinned. Treasure, huh? Now you're talking. I'm in. Figures, Ben said as he started packing his clothes in a duffel bag. You'll do anything if it has profit in it. I'm a guy with simple needs, Tennyson, Kevin said. Oh, like a legendary treasure is a simple need, Ben countered. But what does that have to do with us? Gwen asked Paradox. You will be helping a crew that is looking for One Piece, the Straw Hat Pirates. Hold up, Kevin interjected. You mean we're supposed to be helping someone else claim this One Piece thing? Why? Because it is of the utmost importance that the Straw Hat Pirates find the One Piece before anyone else. Why? Ben asked curiously. Because, Paradox said, unlike the countless other pirates who want the One Piece merely for power and recognition, the Straw Hat's captain, Luffy. Luffy? Kevin asked with a snort. What kind of a name is that? Kevin, shush, Gwen scolded him. Luffy, Paradox said, merely wants to find One Piece because he believes that the Pirate King is the one who has the greatest freedom. Freedom? Kevin repeated. Freedom? That's all? This guy is looking for the greatest treasure in his world, and all he wants it for is freedom. Sounds like an okay guy to me, Ben said. But why does he need our help? Here, Paradox's smile turned mischievous. I'm afraid that will spoil the surprise. Kevin scowled. I really hate when you do that. How do we know that this Luffy guy will even let us join his crew? Gwen asked. Paradox chuckled. Believe me when I say that once he sees what you are capable of, he will practically drag you into his crew. Ben frowned. That doesn't fill me with much confidence. So, Paradox said, are you three in? Sure, Gwen said. I'm in, Ben said. Kevin shrugged. I'll come along. Besides, maybe I'll get some treasure of my own. Paradox beamed. Splendid. Now, I want you all to pack up and meet me outside Ben's house in 1 hour. I should be there by then. Or am I already there? It's so hard to tell sometimes. You're telling us, Kevin muttered. Well, Paradox said as he pulled out his pocket watch. See you three in an hour. In a flash of blue light, Paradox disappeared. An hour passed and the trio stood outside Ben's house. Each one had a bag or suitcase of clothing with them, as they figured that they would be staying in this parallel world for some time. Each one was interested in going for different reasons. Ben was interested in what new adventures lay ahead for him in this new Earth. Gwen was interested in all the things she could learn. Kevin was interested in all the treasure he could obtain. Good to see you all here. The trio saw Paradox walk up to them. I'm glad to see you're all packed up. We're ready when you are, Professor Paradox, Ben said. Paradox nodded in approval. But before I take you there, he said, there is something I must tell you. What now? Kevin asked. In this Earth, there are special fruits called devil fruits, Paradox said, and they have the ability to bestow a permanent power on whoever eats one. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin all stared at Paradox. Seriously? Ben asked. Seriously, Paradox answered. There are many fruits, but they are categorized by 3 different classes. The first and most common class of devil fruit is the paramecia. They bestow the eater abilities that would be typically associated with what you would call superpowers. Gwen, Kevin, your powers will most likely cause people there to believe that you ate paramecia fruits. Wow, breathed Gwen. The second class is known as Zoan, Paradox went on. Those fruits allow an eater shapeshifting powers that deal with animals. Say if a man ate a Zoan fruit that let him turn into a lion. He could not only turn into a full lion, but he could turn into a hybrid form of man and lion, allowing him to use the properties of his human and animal forms. Depending on what form he'll be using at the time, Ben will often be mistaken as a Zoan fruit user. That makes sense, Ben said. The third class is the Loja, Paradox said. These fruits not only allow an eater to control a certain element like ice or fire, but it allows them to control and actually become that element. Due to their powers, most physical attacks do not hurt them. So what are we supposed to do if we run into a bad guy with a Loja fruit power? Kevin asked. Most Loja devil fruits have a certain weakness based on their element, Paradox told him. Aside from that, devil fruit users all bear one critical weakness: water. Water? The 3 teens asked him. The devil fruits have a strange reaction to the sea, Paradox said. Because of that, large bodies of water are hazardous to devil fruit users. That will grant you 3 certain advantages since you do not suffer that weakness. One example is that devil fruit users become hammers and cannot swim. If any part of their body is submerged in water, they cannot use their powers. Should be easy then, Kevin said. Ben can just turn into water hazard and blast them with water. I'm afraid not, Paradox corrected. Running water does not weaken devil fruit users like standing water would. Kevin rolled his eyes. Of course, nothing's ever easy. Don't worry, Paradox encouraged him. I know all of you will be able to handle any challenge that comes your way. That caused an uncomfortable silence between the 3 as Kevin's rampage was still fresh in their mind. Now, Paradox said as if nothing had happened. Are you all ready? The 3 looked at each other and then looked back at Paradox. As will ever be, Kevin replied. Paradox smiled as he pulled out his pocket watch. Well then, let's be off. Everyone was engulfed by that familiar blue light from Paradox's power. When the light cleared, the trio looked around. The first thing they noticed was that it was night time. With that established, they decided to take a look at their surroundings. "Where are we?" Ben asked. The group was standing on what appeared to be rocks that resembled giant cacti. But then Gwen saw that the spikes on the cacti were all tombstones. "Where are we?" she asked. "Some kind of graveyard." "You could say that," Paradox replied. "It might be considered a graveyard of sorts." The trio's attention was then drawn to a nearby town at the bottom of the hills. Music and merriment could be heard. Judging from the noise level, there was quite a party going on. "All right, Spill," Kevin said to Paradox. "Where are we?" "We are at Whiskey Peak," Paradox said. "An island in the Grand Line, a special area in this world where the One Piece treasure is believed to exist. Whiskey Peak is also the current location of the Straw Hat Pirates." "Why are they here?" Ben asked curiously. "Well," Paradox said, "there is this ingenious device known as a log pose that exists in this world. Think of it like a homing beacon compass to islands' magnetic fields. It guides the sailors of this world to various islands to help them reach their destinations, and the Straw Hat Pirates' log pose led them here." "So why didn't you bring us to the town where they were at?" Kevin wondered. "Because, unknown to the Straw Hat Pirates, this town and its inhabitants are agents of Baroque Works," Paradox explained. "Bar who?" Ben asked. "Baroque Works, a secret organization full of mercenaries, bounty hunters, and infamous criminals," Paradox said. "You will learn more about them, believe me. The agents here specialize in luring pirates into thinking they are welcomed and treated as celebrities. I teleported you to the outskirts of the town because if I had teleported you in town and the agents learned you wanted to be in the crew, they would have waited until you were asleep before trying to execute you." Ben looked at Kevin. "And I thought you knew some nasty people." Kevin glared at Paradox. "You really like to mess with us, don't you?" "Don't worry, Kevin," Paradox said. "All will be explained to you in due time. And speaking of time, I must be going now. But one more word of advice, don't tell too many people about the Omnitrix. If you do, then countless people will want to get their hands on it. You're free to tell the Straw Hat crew though. Luffy enjoys having people whom he considers to be amazing. Good luck, you three. I know that you will handle things here." With that, Paradox pulled out his pocket watch and vanished in a flash of blue light. Kevin grumbled as Paradox vanished. "It would be nice if the guy left us with an instruction booklet or something," he muttered. Ben sighed. "Nothing we can do about it now. Come on, we better start heading to the town." "Oh, didn't Paradox just say that it's a town full of mercenaries?" Kevin reminded. "Yeah," Ben replied. "But it's also where these Straw Hat people are at. They might need our help." Kevin snorted as they started walking towards the town. "If you ask me, anyone stupid enough to wind up in a town full of mercenaries is too stupid for his own good." "What?" Gwen asked. "Like we haven't fallen into traps before. Besides, Paradox says that this place tricks pirates into dropping their guard." "Still," Kevin said, "they're pretty stupid if they fell for a trick like that." And so, the trio continued on their way down to the town, and they couldn't help but feel a little anxious. The numerous tombstones on the cacti hills increased their anxiety. These mercenaries had to be good if they had killed so many people. "This is awful," Gwen said as she looked at the tombstones. "I don't think even the hybrid, Vilgax, and Aggregor combined are this terrible." "And Paradox wants us to go up against these guys?" Kevin asked. "Look," Ben said, "Paradox would never send us into something if he didn't already know that we'd come out of it. We're just gonna have to trust him on this. Anyway, we're reaching the town. If this town really is full of mercenaries, it's best if we stay quiet for now." Kevin snorted lowly. "I always forget how good you are at pointing out the obvious, Tennyson." Soon, the gang reached the town. They kept low to the ground so they wouldn't be spotted in case somebody was looking out the windows. To be honest, it was pure luck that nobody had seen them already. Not the trio was complaining, of course. "Hold on a minute," Kevin said. "Paradox didn't tell us how we're supposed to recognize these Straw Hat guys." The other two paused when they realized that Paradox hadn't told them what Luffy or any of his crew members looked like. How were they supposed to find and join up with them if they didn't know who they were? Well, Ben said, we'll just have to look for someone with a straw hat. Kevin rolled his eyes. Brilliant deduction, he muttered. It's a wonder you even need us. They have stopped being noisy, a nearby voice said, causing the trio to fall silent, and have gone to sleep. I wish for all the brave warriors to have a nice dream. Nodding at each other, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin followed the sound of the voice, which led them to the front of the town where a man was standing. His back was turned so they couldn't see his face, but they could see that he was a rather wide man wearing a fine suit and had some really curly hair. The guys who wore powdered wigs in the past had nothing on this guy. Ben, Kevin, and Gwen stuck to the side of the building they were hiding at. Tonight, the man said as he looked up at the moon and the other cacti rocks. The cactus mountain, under the moonlight, looks extremely beautiful. Kevin cringed. Okay, that guy better be a member of this Baroque Works thing, 'cause I refuse to be shipmates with someone like that, he whispered. Ben and Gwen quickly shushed him. Been practicing poetry, Mr. 8, another voice said. Pressing themselves closer to the wall of the building, the trio saw two people land on the ground. One was a woman with blue hair tied in a ponytail and wearing a long, light green jacket. The other was a guy with orange hair with a green outfit while wearing a crown on his head. Oh, it's you, said the man called Mr. 8 without turning around. How are they doing? Asked the woman. They have fallen into the abyss, Mr. 8 said dramatically. Okay, Ben said quietly. I think we can label these guys as Baroque Works agents. Just then, one of the doors opened and a large woman dressed like a nun walked out. They ate and drank a lot, the nun said as she walked towards the other three. And I was just drinking tea. She pulled off her headdress to reveal a rather muscular face for a woman, with her hair tied in short pigtails. So, do you think it's worth having a party for those stupid-looking kids? Monday, Mr. 8 said. Stupid-looking kids? Gwen asked. Do you think she's talking about the Straw Hat Pirates? Well, she's not talking about us, Kevin whispered back. Then, jokingly, he added, or she might be talking about Ben. Ha ha, Ben muttered sarcastically. We should have taken care of them at the port. Monday said to her comrades, Our town is almost out of food and no whale meat's coming any time soon. Whale meat? Gwen asked. They're whalers? That's awful. What is that supposed to mean? The blue-haired woman demanded from Miss Monday. Yeah, we did our best, the man with the crown argued. Calm down and look at this, Mr. 8 said to the others. I have investigated something about those kids. The other three looked at him curiously. Mr. 8 then produced a wanted poster for them. It was too far for Ben and the others to see, though. 30 million berry, Miss Monday and the unnamed couple cried. Berries? Kevin asked. What do berries have to do with anything? I don't know, Gwen said. Maybe they don't mean berries like plants. Maybe berries are what they call money in this world. It better be real money, because if blueberries and stuff like that are the currency, I'm out of here, Kevin said. It's shameful to underestimate those pirates, Miss Monday. Mr. 8 scolded the woman. I am sorry, Miss Monday apologized. Never mind, Mr. 8 said. After we have taken care of them, we will tell the boss. Hurry up and get their treasure out of their ship. Then tie them up. If we killed them, we will get 30% less money because the government wants them alive to execute them in front of people. Oh no, Gwen whispered. We've to do something or they're going to kill Luffy and his crew. Ben's eyes hardened. Not if I can help it, he said to himself as he put down his bag and activated the Omnitrix. Unfortunately, the 4 Baroque Works agents heard the Omnitrix as it came to life. What was that? Asked Mr. 8. It came from nearby, said the guy with the crown. Ben grinned as he turned the dial. Let's see how these guys like human Gaussor. He slammed the dial down. Mr. 8, Miss Monday, and the other pair saw a flash of green light coming from the side of one of the buildings. Then something leapt out at them. It was somebody wearing a huge and bulky suit of armor that made him look like a stove with limbs. They couldn't see the figure's face behind his large headpiece, which only had 3 slit-like lines on the front. An RG, the being yelled in a thick Russian accent before looking at itself and groaning. Do you hate human Gaussor or something? What the? Mr. 8 said, shocked just as his three companions were by this hulking being before him. Who are you? NRG looked up at the four. I am the one who is going to kick your butt. The four laughed at NRG's declaration. Really? Mr. 8 asked. Do you really intend to fight us all by yourself? NRG chuckled. Believe me, he said, I am more than a match for you. Mr. 8 and his companions scowled deeply. Mr. 8, it's Monday, someone screamed as people came out of the buildings. One of them is missing. Then they took a look at NRG and screamed. Who's that guy? Just some concerned citizens, Kevin said coolly as he came out from hiding to face the growing crowd. Gwen followed after him. Mr. 9, Mr. 8 said to the crown guy, forgetting all about being told that one of the Straw Hat pirates was missing. Miss Wednesday, he said to the blue-haired woman. Are they part of the Straw Hats? The blue-haired Miss Wednesday shook her head. No, they were never on the ship. And believe us, said Mr. 9, we'd remember someone like that. He pointed at NRG. And I take it that you're part of Baroque Works, Kevin said calmly, causing every single one of the assailants to look at him in shock. How do you know our organization's name? Mr. 9 demanded. Let's just say we have our resources, NRG said cryptically. Mr. 8 narrowed his eyes. Very surprising. Since you know our secret, we cannot let you live. We will add 3 more gravestones on the Cactus Mountain. NRG chuckled again as he raised his fists. I'm afraid you won't be adding any tonight. One by one, the crowd of people began to draw various weapons out. Some drew close-range weapons like swords, knives, or even axes. Some drew guns, but Kevin, Gwen, and NRG weren't threatened. The guns were all flintlock pistols and muskets. 1 shot per gun before reloading. Pretty unintimidating when you've had to put up with lasers and energy weapons. Get them, Mr. 8 yelled to the bounty hunters. A fight? Kevin asked with a grin. Come and get it. He put a hand on the building next to him, and soon his entire body was covered in stone. Many of the bounty hunters gasped when they saw the change. That guy has the power of a devil fruit, someone shouted. Gwen created mana discs with her powers. Look at what that girl did, another person yelled. She must have a devil fruit power too. Mr. 8 scowled as he studied the 3 opponents. Devil fruit users or not, he told his fellow mercenaries. We cannot allow them to live since they know of our organization. Now get them. While a bit hesitant because they were going up against who they believed to have devil fruit powers, the bounty hunters nodded as they charged at the 3. Gwen started off the fight by throwing her mana discs at the bounty hunters. Many were knocked back by the attack. One guy managed to slip past her attack and came at her with his sword raised to cut her down. But before he could, Kevin jumped in the way, causing the guy's blade to nick against his stone body. My turn, Kevin said as he turned his hand into a stone mace. His unfortunate opponent only had enough time to widen his eyes before Kevin slammed his mace hand into the guy's face and sent him sprawling. The gunmen aimed their muskets and pistols at Gwen. Fire, they cried. But just as they fired, NRG got in the way, causing the bullets to all ricochet off his extremely durable armor. Allow me to heat things up, NRG said as he started to glow with energy. He slammed his hand on the ground and suddenly lava erupted. All the bounty hunters scrambled out of the way to avoid it. Oh, how did he? Wednesday gasped. Are all 3 of them devil fruit users? It doesn't matter, Mr. 8 said. Bring them down. Allow me, said Miss Monday as she removed the rest of her nun outfit. Monday was revealed to be an extremely muscular woman wearing a short dress with a purple and white diamond pattern and 3 green flowers. NRG and Kevin both paused when they saw her. Dude, Kevin said to NRG, are you sure that's a girl? I have no idea, NRG replied. Guys, Gwen snapped, that's rude. It ain't my problem that this person looks like a drag queen, Kevin said with a shrug of his stone shoulders. Miss Monday's eyes hardened at Kevin. I'll deal with you first, she said. She ran at the stone-layered Osmosian. I don't think so, NRG said, running up and tackling her. The two were soon rolling around in the ground, wrestling each other. One guy with a large stone mallet came at Kevin, thinking that his large mallet would be tougher than Kevin's stone body. Too bad for him that Gwen saw it. She created a tendril of mana that grabbed the guy's leg and tripped him up. Kevin quickly took advantage of this to turn his other hand into the head of a hammer and knocked the guy out with one blow. He turned to give a thank you to Gwen when his eyes widened. "Gwen, above you." Gwen looked up to see a bunch of girls a little older than her with various swords, spears, and other blades weapons ready to run her through. She quickly saved herself by creating a barrier of mana. While the girls all caused cracks in the barrier, they didn't manage to shatter it. Kevin leaped up at them and struck them with his hammer and mace hands. Gwen smiled at him. "Thanks, Kevin." NRG and Miss Monday were still wrestling with each other. "I don't know how you found out about our organization," Monday said to NRG. "But we're not going to let you leave this island alive." "I'm afraid I disagree with you," NRG said. He began using his power to heat up his armor. "Ah!" Monday cried in pain as she felt her body burn because of NRG's heated armor and quickly got up. "Sorry," NRG said as he rose too. "You lose." He pulled back his fist and punched Monday right in the face. She fell to the ground with a loud thud. It did not go unnoticed by the rest of the Baroque Works agents. Monday was beaten, someone cried. Mr. 8, Mr. 9, and Miss Wednesday all stared in this incredible display they were seeing. And to hear that Miss Monday, one of their strongest fighters, was taken out so easily was completely unsettling. Kevin heard footsteps coming up behind him and turned to face his next opponent. Much to his surprise, it was a little kid. When the boy saw that Kevin was looking at him, he freaked out and started crying. Another woman in a nurse outfit ran up to the boy and covered him with her body. "Please," the woman begged, "have mercy." Kevin snorted. "That's not fooling anyone." He delivered quick jabs to their necks, rendering the woman and the boy unconscious. "How'd you do that?" NRG asked Kevin in amazement. "What?" Kevin asked back. "I saw it in a kung fu movie once." Mr. 8's eyes narrowed. Whoever these three were, they were very strong. "It seems that we need to step in," Mr. 8 said to Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday, who nodded. "Man," Kevin said as he knocked more bounty hunters. "Aren't there any good opponents around here?" "You want a good opponent?" Mr. 9 yelled over at him. "That would be me." He suddenly unleashed a bunch of wild and crazy somersaults towards Kevin. Hot-blooded, bad of guts. When Mr. 9 had leaped in front of Kevin, he swung his hand out. Kevin swung his mace fist at Mr. 9, only to hit a metallic bat in Mr. 9's hand. Kevin grunted in pain as his mace hand cracked from the bat. "Careful," Mr. 9 taunted. "This is a metal bat." "Kevin," Gwen cried. "Hold on." "I'm afraid not," Mr. 8 said as he pulled out a saxophone and put it to his lips. "Igarappa." Gwen barely had time to create a wall of mana in front of her as the saxophone somehow fired a blast of bullets at her. The bullets caused some considerable cracks in her wall, but it still stood. How much longer it would stand was anyone's guess. "Get her," Mr. 8 yelled at the bounty hunters. The bounty hunters were about to advance when a red beam of intense heat cut the ground in front of them. Some of their weapons had been caught in the heat, forcing the bounty hunters to drop them from the pain. "Forgetting about me?" NRG asked as he started advancing menacingly towards the bounty hunters. The bounty hunters gulped as NRG plowed through them like an unstoppable juggernaut. Some of the more daring tried to attack him, only to break their weapons on his armor. The next thing they would remember would be NRG's fists coming at them, and then blackness. "Stop right there, Mr. Tin Man." NRG paused. "Tin Man? Is that really the best someone could come up with?" He turned around to see who it was that yelled at him, and it turned out to be Miss Wednesday. "I'll deal with you," she said determinedly. "And how do you intend to do that?" NRG asked. Looking at this woman, he didn't feel very intimidated by her. Miss Wednesday responded by clapping her hands above her head and starting to move like a belly dancer. Confused, NRG then noticed that her outfit had many circular patterns on it. As she moved back and forth, it looked to NRG like the circles themselves were moving. It was really hypnotic. NRG found himself fixated on the swirling circles. There, Wednesday said smugly. Become hypnotized by my enchanting vertigo dance. Tennyson, what are you doing? Kevin yelled as he ducked from Mr. 9 swinging one of his bats at him. Keep your eyes on your opponent, Mr. 9 snidely lectured him. Kevin growled. I'm gonna knock that crown right off your head. Mr. 9 laughed as he continued swinging his bats at Kevin. How do you intend to do that when I could shatter you in a single swing? Like this, Kevin replied. He charged forward and tackled Mr. 9 to the ground. Before the acrobat could do anything, Kevin grabbed his bats and his arms became metal, while the rest of his body stayed stone. Thanks, Kevin said before punching Mr. 9 in the face. He got up and ran towards Miss Wednesday, who was still hypnotizing NRG. Sorry to have to do this to you. Was, Wednesday said before Kevin punched her in the face. She went out like a light. NRG rubbed his head plate. What happened? You were being hypnotized, Kevin said. Come on, Gwen needs our help. Gwen was having a bit of difficulty. She had encased herself in a dome of mana from Mr. 8's attacks, but he was relentless. It seems I should stop playing around, Mr. 8 said, preparing to fire. He grabbed the strings of his bow tie and cannons came out of his hair. Igrapapa, he pulled the strings and miniature cannonballs fired at Gwen. But at that moment, NRG leaped in front of Gwen as the cannonballs blasted his body. When the smoke cleared, Mr. 8 was shocked to see that there wasn't even a scratch on NRG's armor. Hey, buddy, said a voice behind him. Let me show you what happens to guys who try to shoot my girl. Mr. 8 turned around just in time for Kevin to punch him in the face was a sledgehammer fist. While it didn't knock him out, he stumbled a good pace back. Gwen and NRG attacked him by shooting a blast of mana and a beam of energy simultaneously at Mr. 8's back. The combined attacks made him fly towards Kevin, who was eagerly waiting. Welcome back, Kevin said as he slammed his sledgehammer fist into Mr. 8's face again. This time, Mr. 8 crumbled to the ground. The bounty hunters that were still standing were horrified. Mr. 9, Miss Wednesday, Mr. 8, and Miss Monday were the strongest people in Whiskey Peak, and they had been defeated so easily. What chance did any of them have against these three monsters? Screaming their heads off, they ran away. Kevin snorted when he saw the bounty hunters running away and screaming like banshees. Wimps, he said as he turned back to normal. In a flash of green light, NRG turned back to Ben. Well, that takes care of that, he said. Now we just need to find the Straw Hat Pirates. You're looking for the Straw Hat Pirates. The gang looked up on top one of the rooftops to see a guy around 19 years old sitting there and looking down at them. He had greenish hair, a plain white shirt with 3 buttons at the collar, and dark green trousers in which the bottoms were tucked inside of black boots. A dark green bandana was tied around his left arm and 3 gold earrings dangled from his left ear. 3 sheathed swords rested at his hip. Who are you? Ben asked. Are you another agent of Baroque Works? The guy chuckled. I had a run-in with them before, he replied. They even tried to recruit me, but I turned them down. If you're not part of Baroque Works, then who are you? Gwen asked. The guy grinned. Roronoazoro. Zoro? Kevin asked. Are you serious? Are you part of the Straw Hat Pirates? Ben asked, not wanting to stir up trouble again. What's it to you? Zoro asked them. The 3 looked at each other. Deciding to take a leap of faith, Ben said, we want to join their crew and help Luffy find One Piece. Zoro looked at them curiously. How do I know if I can trust you? Dude, Kevin said, we just saved the Straw Hats from those Baroque Works guys. Where were you anyway? Zoro grinned again. I was watching the whole thing. I was actually about to fight those guys myself, but you went and stole my fun. Well, Gwen said, if you're not part of Baroque Works, then you must be part of the Straw Hat Pirates. Zoro was impressed. That's some good thinking right there. He looked at Ben. What happened to that armor you were in? Ben paused. It's my devil fruit power, he thought up. We all have devil fruit powers. Zoro looked at him skeptically. I don't know much about devil fruits, but is there really one that allows you to turn into a giant suit of armor in a flash of green light? Ben gulped. This guy was pretty smart. Well, if this guy was part of the Straw Hat crew, well, it was time to take a leap of faith. The truth is this, Ben said as he pulled back his sleeve and held up his arm so Zoro could see the Omnitrix. What's that? Zoro asked, squinting his eyes to get a better look at it. It's the Omnitrix, Ben said. It allows me to turn into these monsters. That armor guy you saw, who I call NRG, is just one of them. I see, Zoro said, grinning at Ben in a way that really spooked him. That little gizmo can really turn you into different monsters. Yeah, it can, Ben said. Really? Another voice said. You don't say. Standing beside one of the buildings was a woman with orange hair and a big grin on her face. Nami, Zoro said. I thought you had gone under. Nami laughed at Zoro. Oh, come on, like I would fall for a lame trick like a town that welcomed pirates, and I can drink way more alcohol than that. Nami brought her attention over to Ben, Gwen, and Kevin. I saw you guys fighting, and I've got to say that I'm impressed. My name's Nami, and you are. I'm Ben Tennyson, Ben introduced himself. This is my cousin, Gwen. He pointed to Gwen, who smiled at Nami. Name's Kevin, Kevin said plainly. Nice to meet you, Nami said warmly. So I take it that you're a member of the Straw Hat Pirates? Ben asked Nami. Yep, Nami said proudly. I'm the navigator and Zoro here's the first mate. You guys were really nice back there, taking out those guys for us. The rest of our crew is out like a light, so they'd be no good. Zoro snorted. I could have taken them all out by myself. I don't doubt it, Nami said. Then she took a closer look at Ben's Omnitrix. So this thing really lets you turn into different creatures? Ben nodded, causing Nami's grin to widen. Oh, Luffy's definitely gonna want you on his crew for sure. The gang became aware of grunting nearby and turned to see Mr. 8 slowly getting back up to his feet. His nose and mouth were bleeding from Kevin's blow, but he had a fierce determination in his eyes. No, he said as he glared at them. I will not allow myself to be defeated. Guess I didn't knock him out hard enough, Kevin said as he prepared to absorb some stone. What a shame, a voice said. Losing to 3 kids. Everyone turned to see 2 people standing nearby. One was a rather tall, dark-skinned, black-haired man. He wore a brown trench coat with a pink cravat and a pair of sunglasses. He had a 5 on his coat. The other one was a woman with short blonde hair and dark eyes. She wore a yellow and orange hat, as well as a yellow dress with a lemon-like pattern, lemon earrings, and white high-heeled shoes. She was also carrying a bright green parasol with blue stripes. Mr. 5, Mr. 8 said. Miss Valentine. Great, Ben groaned. More Baroque works agents? Looks like it, Zoro said. Don't you feel ashamed of yourself at all? Mr. 5 asked Mr. 8. Miss Valentine laughed. That's the difference, she said to Mr. 8. Between you weaklings and us. They're not really nice to each other, Gwen noted. You came here just to laugh at us? Mr. 8 asked, his attention purely on Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. That's just a bonus, Mr. 5 replied. We came here because of orders. Nearby, Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday were starting to get back up. Thank you very much, Mr. 9 said. With your abilities, those guys will be defeated. That's right, Miss Wednesday agreed. Please take care of them. Mr. 5 made a face at them. What are you talking about? Mr. 9 looked at them in confusion, but Miss Wednesday and Mr. 8 were looking at Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine tensely. Kevin said. I think it's best if we clear out. Sounds good to me, Zoro said. Hold on, Gwen said. Something's not right here. You said that we came here to help you? Mr. 5 asked his fellow agents. You think we came to the Grand Line just to do that? He chuckled. What? Mr. 9 asked. Then what are you doing here then? Don't you have any brains? Mr. 5 asked. It's the worst punishment, so the boss sent us. Boss? Ben asked himself. Boss said that someone knows his secret, Mr. 5 continued. Of course, I don't know that secret. But our company's policy is that everything must be secret. No one should know about each other's past or identities. That person knew the real identity of the boss, and that shouldn't be allowed. That's right, Zoro told the other 3. Baroque Works is so secret that they don't even know their leader's identity? When we carefully investigated this case, Valentine said, we found out that there is someone from royalty has infiltrated Baroque Works. Wait a minute, Mr. Nine cried. I'm not royalty. I mean, I wear a crown, but I've got nothing to do with this. We're not talking about you, idiot, Miss Valentine yelled at him. What's going on? Kevin asked. Well, Gwen said, it looks like to me that these people have found a spy in their midst. And they've come to silence the spy, Ben realized. The spies, Mr. Five said, are people who have suddenly disappeared from the kingdom of Arabasta. Die, Mr. Eight yelled. Igarapapa. He fired his cannonballs at Mr. Five, who was engulfed in the explosion. Igaram, Wednesday cried. Igaram? Mr. Nine asked her in confusion. Please escape now, Mr. Eight or Igaram yelled at Ms. Wednesday. A giggle came from up above, causing Miss Wednesday to look up and see Miss Valentine floating above her. She delivered a powerful kick at the ring that held Miss Wednesday's ponytail together. Furious, Miss Wednesday tried to strike at her with a blade attached to a wire, but Miss Valentine somehow floated up to a nearby building. An explosion next to her caused her to turn and see Igaram's body covered in fire. Igaram, she cried. The betrayers are, Mr. Five said, the commander of the royal guard, Igaram, and the princess of Arabasta, Nefertari Vivi. He held up a picture of Miss Wednesday in princess garments waving. The real Miss Wednesday, or Vivi, glared at him. Oh, Mr. Nine said as he bowed. Miss Wednesday's a princess. Stop doing stupid things, Mr. Nine, Vivi yelled at her partner. Mr. Five suddenly stuck a finger up his nose. Boss ordered us to kill both of you. Ben's eyes narrowed. Even though this was a scuffle among mercenaries, he wasn't going to let somebody get killed if he was there to prevent it. Not if I can help it, he said as he stood in between the two groups. Kevin groaned. You just had to go and play hero, didn't you? Who's that? Vivi asked in shock. Mr. Five looked at Ben coolly. When we got here, a bunch of our agents were trying to run away. Apparently 2 kids and a guy in a huge suit of armor had beaten these guys. You one of them? Ben continued glaring at Mr. Five and Miss Valentine. I am, he said coolly. Wait a minute, Mr. Nine said. Are you saying that boy was in that huge suit of armor? You've got to be kidding me. Mr. Five looked at Ben curiously. First you beat them, then you defend them, he shook his head. Doesn't matter. You can't compare to us. Just a useless obstacle in our way. Miss Valentine giggled. Yeah, you'll be crushed to the ground by our power. Ben coolly activated the Omnitrix. Aside from Kevin and Gwen, everyone looked in confusion as Ben scrolled through his different aliens before deciding which one to use. He slammed the Omnitrix down and was engulfed in a flash of green light. When the light cleared, Ben was gone. In his place was a 7-foot-tall, humanoid plant creature with a flame-patterned head. Swampfire, he called out in a nasally voice. What the? Mr. Five, Miss Valentine, Mr. Nine, and Vivi all cried. How'd he do that? Miss Valentine asked. Nami's jaw dropped. I didn't think he could turn into something like that. Then she covered her nose and mouth. And what's that awful smell? Zoro looked at Swampfire with interest. Swampfire raised his fists at Mr. Five and Miss Valentine. Let's go, he said. HMPH, Mr. Five said. I don't know what you are, but you're still nothing to us. He shoved a finger back up his nose. Swampfire was dumbfounded. Oh, why are you picking your nose? Mr. Five pulled a large booger out and held it between his thumb and forefinger. Nespalm cannon, he yelled, flicking the booger at Swampfire. No sooner did the booger hit him was Swampfire engulfed in a large explosion. Ben, Gwen cried out in concern. Kevin glared at Mr. Five. So you're a devil fruit user? That's right, Mr. Five said smugly. I ate the boom boom fruit. I'm basically a human dynamite that can make any part of my body explosive. And now your friend's gone. You sure about that? Kevin asked as he pointed to something behind Mr. Five. Mr. Five looked at him in confusion before he turned around. His jaw dropped as vines began growing out of the ground in front of him. As they did, the vines twisted and molded together until a grinning Swampfire stood before him. "Surprise," Swampfire said before punching Mr. 5 in the face. The blow was enough to send Mr. 5 flying backwards and hitting the ground. "Mr. 5, Valentine cried in shock. She then turned to see Swampfire advancing towards her. She leaped up into the air. Swampfire expected her to fall back down, but was shocked to see that she was floating in the air. "Surprised?" Valentine asked. "I ate the kilo fruit. I can alter the kilograms in my body." She flew above Swampfire. "Take this, 10,000 kilo press." She suddenly shot down towards Swampfire, but he calmly stepped to the side, causing her to fall butt first into the ground. "You're not very smart, are you?" Swampfire said. Wanting to make this as quick as he could, Swampfire pulled his fist back and punched Miss Valentine right in the face. She spun in the air for a moment before hitting the ground. She was out cold. "Ben, look out!" Gwen cried. Swampfire turned around to see Mr. 5 getting back on his feet. He did not look happy. "Do you really think you can beat 2 of Baroque Works' top agents?" he asked Swampfire. Swampfire grinned. "If you're 2 of the top agents, then this will be easy." Mr. 5 scowled. "You think so?" He pulled back his sleeve. "I'm gonna prove you wrong." He charged at Swampfire. "Mr. Plant," Vivi yelled. "Look out." "No worries," Kevin told her calmly. "Ben's got this." As Mr. 5 came at him, Swampfire raised his arms at him. Fire then erupted from Swampfire's palms and struck Mr. 5, who started to scream in pain from the flames. Igaram, who had managed to recover from Mr. 5's previous attack, stared. "What kind of being is he?" he asked. "One who can turn into a plant that wields fire? What is this?" Everyone, minus Kevin and Gwen, watched in stunned silence as Swampfire charged at the burning Mr. 5. Before the agent of Baroque Works could do anything, Swampfire punched him in the face with enough force to cause the man to crumple to the ground. "Ben," Gwen said, "put out the flames." Swampfire nodded. He touched the Omnitrix dial on his chest and transformed. In Swampfire's place was another armored creature. Unlike NRG, this armor was red and much slimmer in design. The head resembled that of a bivalve. "Water hazard," the being shouted in a deep voice. Now everyone except for Kevin and Gwen were speechless as Water Hazard raised his hands and jets for water shot out of his palms to extinguish the flames on Mr. 5's body. Once the flames were put out, Water Hazard turned back to normal. "What are you?" Mr. 9 asked, looking at Ben in complete fear. "You turned into those monsters," Vivi said, "and you just took out 2 officer agents of Baroque Works with ease." "I wouldn't say with ease," Ben admitted. "If I hadn't used Swampfire against that Mr. 5 guy, I would have been barbecue." He heard more movement and turned to see Miss Monday standing up. "All right," she said. "Someone mind telling me what's going on?" "Good question," Kevin said as he looked over at the man called Igaram. "Spill." Igaram sighed as he looked down at the ground. He was about to speak when Vivi beat him to it. "I am Princess Nefertari Vivi from the Kingdom of Alabasta," Vivi said. "My kingdom has been suffering from a civil war that's been going on for 2 to 3 years. "This Wednesday," Mr. 9 cried. "Why didn't you tell me you were a princess?" Monday looked at her in shock. The princess discovered that the organization known as Baroque Works was somehow involved with the war, Igaram picked up. "She asked me to help her, and I gladly did. We infiltrated Baroque Works and discovered the identity of their leader." "You did what?" Mr. 9 hollered. "You're a brave princess," Zoro complimented Vivi. Nami, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin nodded in agreement. "The boss of Baroque Works has convinced his agents that they're going to make an ideal country," Igaram continued. "But his true intention, aside from merely conquering Arabasta, is unknown even to us." "If I can't stop him," Vivi said, "my people will fall into his grasp." "The boss would really do that?" Mr. 9 asked horrified. "I never thought he'd do anything that bad." "We don't really know the boss," Monday pointed out to Mr. 9. "How are we to know what he's really like?" "This must be the reason Paradox brought us here." Ben thought to himself. "He wants us to help this Alabasta place. He then noticed Igaram looking at him. "Boy," he said, "I know that a few moments ago we were enemies, but may I ask something of you?" What is it?" Ben asked him. "If it had not been for you," Igaram said, "I do not know what would have happened to the princess. It is clear that I am not strong enough to protect her. I beg of you, please take Princess Vivi back to her home." He got down on his knees and bowed to Ben. "I beg of you." Ben was at a conflict. He figured Paradox had wanted him to help Alabasta. Was it where the Strawhats were going? "Sure," Nami said. "We'll do it for a billion berry." "What?" everyone cried, looking at Nami. "What?" she asked. "She's a princess, right? What's a billion berry to her?" Kevin nodded in agreement. "Can't argue there," he said. "See?" Nami asked. "Here's someone who speaks my language." Gwen narrowed her eyes. "A kingdom's future's at stake, and you're only doing it for profit." "Don't worry," Zoro said. "She does it to us too." "I don't know about a billion berry," Igaram said weakly, "but I'm sure we can find some kind of reward for you." Ben looked at Igaram. "I don't know about her," he said, "but I'll do it for free." "What?" Nami cried in shock. Igaram, on the other hand, was surprised in a different way. "People's lives are at stake, and that's worth a lot more than money," Ben said to Nami. "I help people because it's the right thing to do and not for profit." Saying that reminded Ben of his hero-turned-enemy Captain Nemesis, who now called himself Overlord. Ben vowed that he would never end up like that. "Thank you," Igaram said tearfully at Ben. "Thank you so much. I promise that you will be rewarded for your services." "You can keep the reward," Ben told him. "I'm just glad to help." "By the way," Gwen said to Vivi, "those guys back there said you find out the leader's real name. What is it?" Igaram shook his head. "That's too risky to tell you," he said. "If any other Baroque Works agents discovered that you two knew the leader's name, your lives would be in jeopardy." "We beat up a whole bunch of their goons," Kevin reminded him. "I think our lives are already in jeopardy." Nami laughed nervously. "It's good that you're not telling us, because the person who wanted to conquer a nation should be the worst, right?" Ben snorted. "Conquer a nation?" "He battled guys who wanted to conquer the whole universe." "No matter how good you are," Vivi said, "you can't compare to Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea." Vivi then realized her slip and covered her mouth with her hands. Igaram, Miss Monday, Mr. 9, and Nami were all looking at her in shock. "Didn't you just say the name?" Zoro asked in annoyance. "Guys," Gwen called, "look over there." She pointed to a nearby building where a vulture with dark goggles and an otter wearing a polka-dotted outfit and sunglasses were looking at them all. The otter and vulture looked at each other before the otter hopped onto the vulture's back and the vulture took off. "It's the unluckies," Mr. 9 cried. "They report straight to the boss." "They're gonna tell your boss that we know his secret, aren't they?" Nami yelled, grabbing Vivi by her jacket's collar and started shaking her. "I'm sorry," Vivi cried. "I didn't mean to tell you." "I'll stop them," Ben said as he activated the Omnitrix. "Let's see them try and escape Jet Ray." He slammed the dial down. When the green light passed, a creature that looked like a phantom stood before everyone. It had wide, bulbous green eyes and a lipless mouth that shook its white teeth. "Big chill," the creature said in an eerie whisper of a voice. It groaned. "Not again." Ghost," Nami cried. Big Chill looked up at the vulture and otter as they were flying away. Ah well, Big Chill might work. He unfolded his blue cloak, which was revealed to be 4 wings and a pair of fuzzy antennae. All in all, he now looked like a creepy Mothman. He took off into the sky after the vulture and otter. "Just how many of those things can that kid turn into?" Monday asked. The otter and vulture turned around and were shocked to see a Mothman flying towards them. The otter tapped on Vulture's wing and the vulture nodded in understanding. They turned around and zoomed towards Big Chill. Big Chill's eyes narrowed, so they had decided to go and try to fight him before tattling to their boss. Fine then. Their loss. As the two flew towards Big Chill, he took a deep breath before releasing an icy wind out of his mouth. And the foolish vulture and otter flew right into it. And the instant they did, they were encased in a block of ice. Big Chill watched as the strange pair, still looking at him with their frozen expressions of surprise, plummeted to the river that ran through the island. They needed to chill out anyway, Big Chill said before chuckling at his little pun. He flew back to the others and turned back to normal. Vivi, Mr. 9, Igaram, Monday, and Nami were all staring at him with dropped jaws. Zoro had a look of acceptance on his face. First you turn into a giant suit of armor with heat abilities, Igaram said. Then you turn into a plant creature with fire abilities, a red creature with water abilities, and now a moth ghost with ice breath? How is this possible? What kind of creature are you? There's no possibility a devil fruit with powers like that could exist. So let me get this straight, Zoro said. You can turn into different monsters and each of them has different powers. Ben nodded. That's right. I'm sticking with him, Nami said, suddenly right at Ben's side and hugging his shoulder tightly. I've already chosen his position on the crew. He's my new bodyguard. Ben made a face at his so-called new position. Be bodyguard. Igaram stared at Ben in wonder. Yes, I see now that you are most suitable for protecting Princess Vivi. Nami made a face. He's my bodyguard first. Boy, what is your name? Igaram asked. Ben replied while trying to dislodge Nami from his shoulder. Ben-Tennyson, Igaram repeated. Strange that I have never heard of you. Surely one with powers like yours would be told throughout the entire Grand Line. Ben chuckled sheepishly as he scratched the back of his head. I usually keep to myself. He lied. Behind him, Gwen and Kevin chuckled. You have defeated the unluckies for now, Igaram said. And the Mr. 5 team should still be unconscious. This is good, as it means Crocodile won't know about you discovering his identity yet. But the fact remains that he now knows about Princess Vivi and myself. She is still in grave danger. Don't worry, Ben reassured him. I'll make sure that she gets home safely. Mr. 8 or Igaram or whoever you are, Mr. 9, bringing everyone's attention onto him. I want to help too. Vivi gasped. Mr. 9. We're already wanted dead since we failed to kill the Straw Hat pirates, Monday said. If we're going down helping friends. Igaram stared at them before he recomposed himself and nodded. Thank you both. His eyes lit up. In fact, I think there's something we can do. Mr. 9 and Miss Monday, I'll need your help. Mr. 9 nodded with a grin. What do you need us to do? We 3 are going to create a decoy ship to lure any other Baroque Works agents away, Igaram explained. We'll send them on a chase while Ben-Tennyson and his companions take Vivi home in secret. Crocodile will not suspect a thing. Yeah? Kevin asked. Well, what if you're caught and they find out the princess isn't there? Hopefully, if we are caught, Igaram said, the princess will already be in Alabasta. Then we need to leave now, Gwen said. Igaram turned to look at Vivi. Princess, he said, please give me the eternal pose. Eh? Vivi said in surprise. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something that looked an hourglass with only a glass orb in the middle of it. Inside the orb was a compass needle. Eternal pose? Gwen asked. What's that? Unlike a log pose, which will guide you from island to island, Igaram explained. An eternal pose is locked on to one specific island and will always point you in that direction no matter where you are. He looked at Vivi now. I will take Mr. 9, Miss Monday come with me to Alabasta. You will take the regular route. I've never been that way, but I believe you will pass at least 2-3 islands before you get to Alabasta. If you are safe, I hope to see you at our country. He looked at Ben. Please take care of the princess. Ben nodded. I will, he said. Smiling, Igaram took Vivi's hand. I think there will be many obstacles during the journey, but please take good care of yourself, princess. Vivi smiled at Igaram. You, too, she said. She looked at Mr. and Miss Monday. You be careful, too. Mr. 9 smiled at her. Bye-bye, baby, he said. Good luck, Miss Monday said. Come on, you too, Igaram said to them. We need to prepare everything. With that, the 3 walked away. You know, Kevin said, for a guy with hair like that, he's not a bad guy. Come on, Zoro said. If we're going to do this, we need to wake up the others. I'll lead them to the ship, Nami said to Zoro, indicating Ben, Gwen, Kevin, and Vivi. You go and get the other 3. Got it, Zoro said as he walked off. Nami then grinned at the others as Gwen, Kevin, and Ben picked up their bags that they had put down before the battle. Let me show you our boat. She started to lead them to the docks when an explosion was heard nearby. The gang turned around to see a roaring inferno nearby. No, Nami breathed. They already got him? Ben asked. Were there other people besides Mr. Five's team and the Unluckies? Gwen wondered aloud. Oh, Kevin said. Color me crazy, but I think it's time to get out of here now. Nodding, Nami yelled. Follow me, and so Gwen, Ben, and Kevin followed after her. But Gwen noticed Vivi wasn't following them. She turned around and saw Vivi was still standing there, looking in the direction of the inferno. Vivi, she called as she ran up to the princess. We have to go. Then she saw Vivi's face and that she was biting her lip and tears were trying to pour from her eyes, but she was fighting them. Gwen was amazed at how strong Vivi was trying to be. Vivi, she said gently, Igaram gave his life so that you could get home safely. We won't let his sacrifice be in vain. Slowly turning her head to look at Gwen, Vivi nodding and began to wipe the tears from her eyes. Come on, Kevin yelled back at them. We need to get out of here. Wait, Vivi cried. I need to find Karu. Who? Ben asked. My duck, Vivi explained. I can't go anywhere without my duck. Kevin stared at her. A duck? We're letting ourselves be sitting ducks for a duck? I'm not going anywhere without Karu, Vivi said determinedly. Kevin groaned. Fine, we'll look for him. And so, the gang began looking all over town to find this duck. Vivi would yell and whistle for the duck, but no one came. We're wasting time, Kevin said after a bunch of fruitless searching. Let's just go. Kevin, Gwen said. Look, Gwen, Kevin said. The longer we stay here, the more danger Vivi is in. We have to go now. Ben sighed as he looked down at the ground. I hate to say it, Gwen, but I think Kevin's got a point. Guys, Gwen said in defeat. They're right, Vivi said. Vivi, Nami said. Are you sure? Vivi nodded. Yes, let's go. Feeling a bit lousy, Nami led the others to the docks. Once there, they found a small ship that looked like it had been through the ringer and had the head of a ram for a figurehead. Kevin frowned. That's your ship? He asked. Nami frowned back at him. Yeah, she said. What about it? Doesn't look all that intimidating for a pirate ship, Kevin said. Hey, a voice called. Zoro was standing by the railing off the ship and waving at them. What took you guys? We couldn't find Vivi's duck Karu, Ben explained. Duck? Zoro asked. This guy? Quack. Everyone jumped when they saw a large duck beside Zoro. His wings were tipped with black as were his tail feathers. He had a spot on his bill and wore a blue cholo with a white pattern on it. He also wore goggles and carried a barrel of water around his neck, complete with a straw sticking out of it. That's a duck? Kevin asked. It's huge. How'd you get here already? Vivi yelled at the duck, who simply quacked back at her. Come on, Zoro called. I heard that explosion. We need to get out of here. Gwen quickly created a stairway of mana that lead from the ground to the ship. Nami and Vivi stared as Gwen, Kevin, and Ben ran up it to the ship. Looking at each other, Nami and Vivi decided they had nothing to lose and ran up it as well. They landed on the deck of the ship. Hey, a new voice cried. Who are they? The gang became aware of 3 other boys on the ship who were looking at them in confusion. The first was a boy around Kevin's age. He had jet black hair underneath a straw hat and a scar underneath one of his eyes. This had to be Luffy. The next one was an older guy wearing a blue button-up shirt and black pants. He had blonde hair that covered one eye while the visible eye had a curly eyebrow. The last person was a tanned, skinny teenager with black curly hair, orange lips, and a long nose, which made Ben think of Pinocchio. He wore a dark yellow plaid bandana, a blue and white striped armband on his left arm, goggles, brown overalls with a white sash, and no shirt underneath. A yellow satchel was strapped around his shoulder. What's going on? Luffy said. And what's with the duck? Zoro said this place was a trap, said the long-nosed boy. The blonde-haired boy then noticed Gwen. Suddenly his visible eye became heart-shaped. Who is this beautiful woman? He asked. Kevin scowled and stood protectively beside Gwen. Who are you? Luffy asked, looking at Ben, Kevin, and Gwen. Ben introduced himself, Kevin, and Gwen. We'd like to join your crew. And this girl is a princess, and she needs to get back to her home. Luffy looked at them for a moment. Sure, he said. Ben blinked in surprise. Wait a minute, he said. That's it? Zoro nodded. You get used to it, he said. Wednesday, the blonde-haired boy said. You're really a princess. We'll explain everything later, Kevin said. Right now, we need to get out of here. But what about all the town people? Luffy asked. We should thank them. It was a trap, Gwen explained. They were going to give you over to the government and collect your bounty. Didn't you just hear me? Kevin asked everyone. I said we need to get out of here. Kevin's right, Nami said. Let's go. Yes, Nami-san, the blonde-haired boy said, looking at Nami in a lovey-dovey manner before running off. He was followed by Zoro and the long-nosed boy. Ben wondered where they went when he noticed the ship was moving. Turn the ship upstream, Vivi said. It will be the fastest way out of here. Following her orders, the ship began to move upstream. Anyway, Luffy said as he looked at the others. What's going on? Kevin began to tell a tale that would make many tall tellers jealous. He made a part about how he, Gwen, and Ben had heard about the Straw Hat Pirates and had been looking to join them. They had followed the Straw Hats to Whiskey Peak, but it was night time when they got there. They overheard some of the people talking about how they wanted to kill the crew. Wanting to prove themselves to the Straw Hats, the trio had engaged the bounty hunters in battle. This was supported by Zoro and Nami, who had been awake and witnessed the battle with their own eyes. They kept the part out about Ben's transformation, as they wanted to see the look on the other three's faces the next time Ben became a monster. Gwen picked up the tale and told about Baroque works. They explained about the situation about Arabasta, Vivi, and the whole Baroque works had to play. Luffy was excited when he was told about Crocodile was one of these 7 warlords of the sea. According to the blonde-haired guy, they were fearsome pirates who worked for government to hunt other pirates. Ben wrapped it up about his promise to help Vivi get home safely. So that's it, Luffy said. Okay then. Kevin deadpanned at Luffy. You don't need much convincing, do you? Those jerks, the blonde-haired boy, who had introduced himself as Sanji, growled while lighting a cigarette and putting it in his mouth. Trying to hurt poor Vivi-chan and Gwen-chan. If I had been awake, I would have beaten all of them. And now we have a criminal organization after us, whimpered the long-nosed boy, who had introduced himself as Usopp. Relax, Nami said. I'm not scared of those guys. How are you not scared? Usopp asked. You're usually as scared as I am. Nami punched Usopp in the head, causing a large lump to appear. Not anymore, she said with a grin. I've got a bodyguard. Sanji's face was one of pure joy. Of course, Nami-san, I will. I officially declare that Ben's position on the crew is to be my bodyguard, Nami said, immediately latching to Ben's side again. Eh? Sanji freaked out, his cigarette falling out of his mouth. Usopp looked at Ben. Is he really that strong? Zoro grinned, remembering all the creatures he saw Ben turned into. He sure is. Luffy's eyes lit up in excitement. If Zoro of all people said someone was strong, then he definitely had to be. Why can't he be my bodyguard too? Usopp whimpered. What? Nami asked indignantly. I'm the ship's navigator. I'm more important to the crew. Therefore I deserve the best protection. She looked over at her captain. Please, Luffy, she said as she made a pouty face that sent Sanji on cloud 9. Luffy scratched his chin for a moment. Yash, he said before pointing at Ben. I declare you Nami's bodyguard. Yay, Nami said while Sanji began to grind his teeth and glare daggers at Ben, who wasn't really that thrilled about his new role. Zoro chuckled to himself at Sanji's face. Vivi, Gwen said, can you tell me about Baroque works? How many people do you think this crocodile guy will send after us? I'm not sure, Vivi admitted. But there are about 2,000 people working for Baroque works, and there are many other towns that are similar to Whiskey Peak. And since we know who the leader is, Kevin said, anyone could be an enemy. Sanji puffed out his chest and pointed at himself with his thumb. Don't worry, Vivi-chan, I'll protect you, Nami-san, and Gwen-chan with my life. Kevin scowled at him again. That's very kind of you, Sanji, Gwen said politely. But I can take care of myself. That's for sure, Kevin said with a grin at his girlfriend. So, Ben, Luffy said, walking up to the other boy. How do you fight? Well, Ben started to say. Hey look, Usopp said. The mist is coming. It must be almost dawn. The other looked ahead. Sure enough, mist was coming and a light was shining in the distance. The night was over. Be careful not to hit the rock. I'm so lucky I found you. Everyone turned around at the sound of the voice. Sitting on the railing of the upper deck of the ship was a woman wearing a skimpy cowgirl outfit consisting of a purple cleavage exposing top and matching miniskirt, complete with a dark purple cowboy hat and boots. What? Zoro said in shock. Who's that? Nami asked, fearing the worst. She's beautiful, Sanji cried, causing everyone to look at him in annoyance. Is now really the time? Kevin asked him. The woman smiled at Vivi. I just met Mr. 8, Mr. 9, and Miss Monday over there, she said. Miss Wednesday. Vivi felt her blood run cold. Did you kill them? Anyway, Luffy yelled at the woman. Who allowed you to get on my ship? Why are you here? Vivi yelled at the woman. This all Sunday? Who is she? Nami asked frantically. Who's her partner? Vivi tightened her fists. Mr. Zero. What? Kevin responded. She's the boss's partner. Vivi nodded. And the only one in the organization who knew the boss's identity. So I followed her and found out as well. Miss All Sunday smiled at her. Actually, I just let you follow me. It was a setup, Gwen realized. Miss All Sunday directed her smile at Gwen now. Smart girl. But I already knew that, Vivi said. And you told the boss about me, didn't you? Luffy huffed. So she's a bad person after all. What do you want from me? Vivi demanded from Miss All Sunday. Because I feel that you worked really hard, Miss All Sunday replied. So I decided to help you. However, the princess who wants to help her nation and become Baroque Works' enemy is a stupid thing to do. Vivi was livid at Miss All Sunday calling her stupid. Stop insulting me, she yelled. The others responded as well. Zoro drew one of his swords, Nami produced a staff seemingly out of nowhere, and Usopp pulled out a slingshot and aimed it at Ms. All Sunday. Ben decided to take action too and activated the Omnitrix. Wrath might have a few words for you, he said as he switched the dial to Wrath and slammed it down. The deck was filled with a flash of green light. Once the light had dissipated, a new creature stood for all to see. It was 6 to 7 feet tall and looked like it was made out of purple crystal with several black lines and dots along its body. The being's hands and face were magenta, which matched the magenta shards all over its body, 6 on its back, 2 on its chest, and 1 on top of its small, purple head, resembling a horn. It also had one large, cyclopean eye. Chromastone, the creature yelled. Then it looked at itself. Oh, come on. What in the? Sanji cried in shock. Usopp screamed. Rock monster. Luffy asked. He had a huge smile of excitement on his face, and his eyes seemed to look like stars. Rock monster. Unlike the others, Miss All Sunday was only mildly surprised. How unique. I've never seen a being like that before. But first, could you all please stop pointing those dangerous weapons at me? Zoro's sword, Nami's staff, and Usopp's slingshot all fell out of their owner's hands. What was that? Zoro asked. Was it a devil fruit? Gwen suggested. What power was that? Telekinesis? Kevin asked. Chromastone glared his one eye at her. He raised his hand and prepared to shoot an energy beam. Calm down, Miss All Sunday said. I haven't received any orders yet, so there's no reason to fight you now. Just then, Luffy's hat flew off his head and went towards Miss All Sunday, who daintily caught it. So, you are the captain, she said looking at Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy right? Kevin snorted in laughter. Monkey, is she for real? Give me back my hat, Luffy yelled angrily at Ms. All Sunday. You want to mess with me? I know that you are our enemy after all. Why don't you just come and get it now? Usopp yelled. It would have looked brave if he wasn't hiding behind the mast as he said it. Miss All Sunday put Luffy's hat on top of her own. You are so unlucky to help the princess who is the enemy of Baroque works. And you too, princess. You have just a few pirates to take care of you. Vivi was about to reply when Chromastone stepped in front of her, as if he was shielding her from a miss. All Sunday, her eyes widened in surprise. I beat Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, Chromastone said to Miss. All Sunday. I beat the unluckies, and I can beat you. You beat Mr. 5, Miss Valentine and the unluckies? Miss All Sunday asked him. All by yourself, she smiled. My, you are impressive. Chromastone growled while narrowing his one eye at her. Unfortunately, Miss All Sunday continued. Do you have any idea about the island you're heading for? Your next destination is Little Garden. We don't even have to do anything over there, and you might. Maybe you won't arrive in Arabasta. You will all disappear from this world before you see Crocodile's face. Gwen created mana around her hands. That's not going to happen, she said. Do you think we'll do as what you said? Luffy retorted at MS. All Sunday. Give me back my hat. You idiot, Usopp yelled. You really are crazy. Zoro sweat dropped. Why are you hiding? It's All Sunday took off Luffy's hat and threw it back at Luffy. It spun through the air before somehow landing perfectly on his head. Stop barking, she said. Anyone can boast. You knew that you will face many obstacles, but you are still going to go there. You really are crazy. Vivi noticed that Miss All Sunday had tossed something in her direction and caught it. She opened her hands and gasped when she saw that it was an eternal pose. An eternal pose? She asked Miss All Sunday. If you have that, Miss All Sunday said, you can overcome any obstacle because that eternal pose will guide you to Arabasta. Our boss doesn't even know the way to get there, so we can't follow you. Kevin snorted. Oh, come on. Every kid knows that you don't accept gifts from strangers. Zoro nodded in agreement. I think it's a trap. I'll let you decide if it's a trap or not, Miss All Sunday said with a smile on her face. Vivi looked at the eternal pose in her hand. She didn't know what to do. She didn't want or need help from a woman like Miss All Sunday. But she didn't know if this would be more convenient for everyone else. Just then, Luffy snatched the eternal pose from her and smashed it in his grip. Are you crazy? Nami yelled as she suddenly kicked Luffy in the face with a high-heeled shoe. She just provided the easy way, but you destroyed it. Come on, Kevin said with a roll of his eyes. You were actually going to trust her. Luffy, on the other hand, was glaring up at Miss All Sunday. You don't have a right to decide our route, he yelled at her. Miss All Sunday smiled at him. Really? She asked. That's a pity. A flash of green light happened and Chromastone was back to being Ben. Just watch us, he said to Miss All Sunday. We're going to make sure that Princess Vivi gets to Arabasta safely. And you'd better be ready for us because we're going to bring you down. Are you both crazy? Nami yelled. Zoro grinned. This kid's got spirit. Indeed he does, Miss All Sunday agreed. And I like men with great spirit. If you are lucky, we shall meet again. Who wants to meet you? Luffy muttered. Miss All Sunday then leaped off the ship. Everyone thought she had thrown herself overboard, but she was really riding on the back of a giant turtle. Let's go, Banchai, Miss All Sunday said to the turtle. In response, it started swimming away from the ship. Wow, Luffy cried in excitement. A giant turtle. Wow, Gwen breathed as she saw it. I've never seen one that big aside from Terraspin's species. Vivi fell to her knees in frustration. I don't know what that woman is thinking, she admitted. Don't think about it, Nami said in an attempt to cheer her up. There is one person just like that on our ship too, Zoro said as he leaned against the mast. 3 guesses who, Kevin joked. He and Zoro chuckled. Anyway, Gwen said kindly to Vivi, don't let that woman get to you. We're going to make sure that you get to Arabasta and stop Crocodile. Vivi looked up at Gwen and smiled softly. Thank you, Gwen. Hold on, Sanji said. There's one thing I'm curious about. He pointed at Ben. How'd you turn into that rock thing? Yeah, Luffy said eagerly. How'd you do that? Did you eat a devil fruit too? Ben chuckled as he scratched the back of his head. Well, he said as he rolled up his sleeve so they could see the Omnitrix, this thing is called the Omnitrix and And so, Ben began his tale of the Omnitrix and what it could do. Paradox had reassured him that he could trust the Straw Hat Pirates with that secret. He could come to trust Paradox's judgment, due to the guy being a traveler of past, present, and future. So, he knew that he could trust the Straw Hats with knowing about the Omnitrix. Far away, Miss All Sunday smiled to herself as she watched the Straw Hats ship sail away. "First destination," she said. "Little Garden." So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Spartan of Chaos FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.